established rich coming right back at you. This story right here is not just about two artists. This is about expectations, loyalty, and what happens when two people are living by completely different rules. We got Ralo speaking on his relationship with Lil Baby. And you can hear it in his voice that this ain't just business to him. This is personal. Because from his perspective, he feels like he looked out for Lil Baby when Lil Baby ain't have nothing. He feels like the support he gave him should have created a lifelong loyalty. And that right there is the foundation of his frustration. Now let's keep it real. Anybody in his position will feel that way. If you help somebody when they down, if you put time, money, or energy into them, you expect something back. Not necessarily money, but respect, loyalty, acknowledgement. And from Ralo's perspective, he don't feel like he got none of that.
But that's the only baby diss itself and be like, cause they would want to like, it was time when he'll just come to my spot by himself, and he ain't even had no motion. He probably had a little motion in the street where he was financially cool and whatever, but you know, there's always levels to this. But I had this motherfucker. I had the city in the chokehold for about 5 years straight. No fumbles. Couldn't nothing move around it. That couldn't much. You had a couple niggas getting some money on it. But me, I had the Bluff, Simpson, ass. I had the West Side in the chokehold. I ain't need buddy. Not for nothing. Zero. Not for a speck of dust. I had this chokehold. I had Lamborghini, Hellcat, Corvette, apartments, motherfucking mansions, jets. I had everything. I had the best prices on the heroin, cocaine, and weed. We talk online in the DM. I can't say what he'll do, but I wouldn't even try to approach him on no shit, cause I don't even want us to ever have to go south. Not saying that we will, and I ain't trying to go south with him, but I'm just saying like I ain't even on that. Whenever he want to link or he want to kick it, we can do that. You know what I'm saying? But until then, like, shit, it what it is. I'm gonna stay in my bubble. You know what I'm saying? You come in my bubble anytime you get ready. He know he invited. He know that it's nothing online. This was my friend, nigga. I know you see everything. You go see everything. So he know he invited. He know I ain't said no line. He know I'm always speaking up for him, even though he did that line.
Now, after watching that, you can see exactly where he coming from. He ain't speaking like this is just some regular industry connect. He is speaking like somebody who feels left behind, and that's a real feeling. But here's where we got to separate feelings from reality. Ralo talks about how he was one of the biggest in the streets for years. He talks about the money, the influence, and the position he held during that time. But here's the hard truth. Success in the streets is not real success. It looks real in the moment. It feels real in the moment, but it does not last. It never does. And 99% of the time, it ends in one of two ways: prison or death. So when you build your expectations off that version of success, you are building on something that was never stable to begin with. And that's where the disconnect starts. Because from Ralo's point of view, he was winning. He was up. But from a long-term perspective, that was never a foundation that could sustain anything real. And that matters when you start talking about loyalty. Because loyalty built in one world don't always transfer to another world. And that's exactly what happened here. Ralo is operating from an old Atlanta mindset. A mindset where loyalty is everything and your past relationships define your future moves. But Lil Baby is operating from a different place. He is operating from a business mindset. A mindset where every move is about career, image, and long-term positioning. And that shift changes everything. Because now it's not about who you helped years ago. It's about what aligns with where you are right now. And that's the part that people don't want to say out loud. Just because you helped somebody in the past does not guarantee you a future relationship. And that's the hard pill to swallow. But it's the truth. Now, let's talk about Lil Baby's side. He made it clear that he understands the business. And that one line should tell you everything. Because what he is really saying is this: I know what this is. I know what comes with this level. I know what I can and cannot be associated with. And that's not hate. That's decision making. Because if you are building a global brand, you cannot move like you still in the same space you came from. And that's where the real conflict is. Ralo is talking about loyalty. Lil Baby is moving with strategy. And those two things don't always line up. Now, let's address a part that a lot of people are thinking but not saying. Why would Lil Baby want to associate himself with somebody who is still glorifying the streets? And we got to keep it real. He wasn't presenting it as a lesson. He wasn't presenting it as a warning. He was presenting it as a flex. And that makes a difference. Because if you are trying to grow If you're trying to move into a different space, you are going to distance yourself from that type of energy. Not out of disrespect, but out of necessity. And that's the part people misunderstand. Distance don't always mean hate. Sometimes it just means that you're moving different. And to me, that's what this looks like. Now, let's talk about the part that makes this worse. If somebody don't want to deal with you no more, why keep talking about them? Why keep bringing their name up? Why keep saying the door is open? Because at a certain point, it don't sound like loyalty no more. It starts to sound like you looking for validation. And that's a different energy. If somebody decides to move on, you let them move on. You don't keep explaining why they should come back. And that's what it starts feeling off. Because now it looks like expectations turned into disappointment. And disappointment turned into a public conversation. And that never ends well, especially in a city like Atlanta, where words don't always stay on the internet. Because when you have two high-profile names, people around them start picking sides. And once that happens, it can turn into something completely different. And that's what nobody wants. Now, we got to talk about expectations, because that's what this whole situation is really about. Expectations will set you up every single time if they are not rooted in reality. And that's exactly what we watching play out between Ralo and Lil Baby. Ralo had an expectation that what he did in the past would guarantee a certain type of relationship in the future. He expected that the support he gave would turn into permanent loyalty. But life don't work like that. People change, positions change, priorities change. And when you don't adjust your expectations to meet that, you end up disappointed. Not because somebody did you wrong, but because you expected something they never promised to maintain forever. And that's the part people don't want to hear. Just because you did something for somebody does not mean they owe you access to their life forever. That's not loyalty, that's control. And it's a big difference between the two. Loyalty is natural, control is expected. And when you start expecting somebody to move a certain way because of what you did for them, you are no longer dealing with loyalty. You're dealing with expectations. And expectations is where the problem starts. Now, let's talk about why this hit Ralo the way it did. He remembers when he had a whole lot of power. He remembers when his name held weight in a different way. And when you go from that position to watching somebody else rise past you, it can mess with you if you're not grounded. Not because you hate them, but because you remember when things was different. And that memory can turn into expectations. You start thinking, I was there first. I helped build this. And from there, you start feeling like you should still have a place in it. But that's not how growth works. Everybody's path is different. And sometimes people outgrow spaces, people, and situations. Not out of disrespect, but out of necessity. Lil Baby moved into a different space. A space where every association matters. A space where image, business, and long-term decisions come first. And that requires distance from certain things. And again, it ain't hating. That is strategy. But when you on the other side of that, it don't feel like strategy. It feels like betrayal. And that's why Ralo is speaking the way he's speaking. But here's a part that needs to be said clear. Just because somebody don't deal with you anymore, it does not mean they disrespecting you. Just because somebody moves different, it don't mean they forgot what you did. Sometimes it just means they chose a different path, and that choice has to be respected. Now, let's talk about the public side of this, because once you start speaking on somebody in interviews, you change the energy of the situation. What could have been private now becomes public. What could have been left alone now gets analyzed by all of us. And that never helps. It only adds pressure. It only adds opinions. And in a city like Atlanta, that can turn into something real quick, because now it's not just two people. It's circles, crews, and associations. And that's how small things turn into big problems, which is why sometimes the best move is silence. Not weakness, not avoidance, just maturity. If somebody don't want to deal with you, you let it be what it is. You don't keep explaining it. You don't keep coming back to it. You should just move on. And that's the part that's missing here. This situation is not about who's right or wrong. It's about understanding how different mindsets create different outcomes. One side is built on loyalty and history. The other side is built on business and future. And when those two things don't align, this is what you get. A misunderstanding. A public conversation that don't need to happen. But the real lesson is simple. Stop expecting people to move how you will move. Stop expecting your past to control somebody else's future. And most importantly, stop letting expectations set you up for disappointment. Because every time you do that, you lose before the situation even plays out. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe, establish rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.